Be, you know.
It's just too loud.
Oh, I just heard it. I just heard it. What's up, guys? What's up? Welcome to, excuse me as I choke on my own words. Welcome to another show of Creators Union Live. So, as we get all of our things set up here, I'd like to ask our awesome, well, not even a guest, you're like the regular, the dude, the guy, DJ Jazzy Jeff. And we've got Brian as well, who, as his title will say, technologist. He's kind of like the genius of all trades, not like the jack, but like the genius of all trades. I genuinely consider him to be that because no, really though, like you teach me so much all the time.
Thank you.
It's like puts my little mind at ease always being around you because I know you're always going to be able to explain it in a way that is a way that I can understand it. So to start us off today, we're going to go super simple as I'm talking about these geniuses here on the screen. Welcome, James. Good to see you and have you with us. So first things first, I would like to know, Jeff, you're going to go first.
Oh, man.
We're going to dive into the 5 senses real quick. So the 5 senses, I had to write them down because I needed the review as well. We've got touch, taste, smell, see, and hear.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Of the 5 senses, I'd like you to tell me, what are you touching right now? What do you taste? What do you smell? What do you see? What do you hear?
Right now?
Right now, in this moment.
Well, I'm touching my face. I'm smelling that I brushed my teeth on this microphone. I'm tasting the aftermath of probably a high fructose corn syrup fruit punch. I'm looking at a bunch of beautiful creative people and I'm hearing myself speak. Did I miss one?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I was creating my visual, and that's the point of this, is to create the illustration in our own minds of what you are experiencing here right now in this moment, and to allow this conversation, although it's digital, it's on a screen to some format, whatever way the screen is, on a phone, a laptop, computer, TV, whatever. It's to help create a more tangible experience for all of us. So, Brian, I would love to have you share your 5 senses right now, here in this moment.
What are my 5 senses?
You've got touch, taste, smell, see, and hear.
Okay, you're gonna have to remind me.
Okay.
Touch. Touch right now. What I am physically touching or feeling is kind of these arms of my chair, which are textured. I really don't know how to translate that. See. I see what is going to lead to what I'll hear. And that is, I'm going to have to bite Jeff, right? Is some interesting, creative people. And I think, own individual types of genius across the board. And so I'm seeing that I'm going to be able to hear and partake in a conversation that I'm going to leave with some new insights and new knowledge from. Taste. Honestly, I'm tasting a boiled egg, but because I've been on meetings all day and I jumped in, and while you guys have been getting ready, I've been snacking. What I sense is, and I think this is maybe the more important thing, I sense that us here and everybody in the audience are on the verge of and part of making the future happen, frankly. Did I get? I don't think I hit 5, but that's good enough, right?
Here, you did see, you did smell, right?
He did taste.
I did not do smell.
You did not do smell.
Yeah,
smell.
I smell cannabis because I smell cannabis right now.
Okay.
Not literally.
420 yeah.
Figuratively, right?
That's funny.
Yeah, in honor of 420. But it goes back to the conversation we were having, and honestly, I'm going to go back to conversations I've had today about health, wellness, the unlock of creativity. That I'm not promoting it, parents, but the unlock of creativity and some of our bindings that we find from things like cannabis. So, you make people work, Parisa. Boy,
You're alive. Why not show up to it?
Right.
You know, why not? All right, James, you ready to hop in on this question? Or this share? It's not really a question, it's more of a share to help create some tangibility in this conversation.
Remind me again of the senses, please.
So we've got touch, taste. Let's do touch and taste, then we'll go to the next three. Go for it.
Touch, aluminum of the accordion thing that's holding up this laptop. It's very aluminum, like steel.
Okay.
Yes.
You
Taste.
forgot the other one?
You forgot taste.
She just gave you two.
Taste is the ionized, hydrated, essential water that I have been drinking, which is thankful.
What is
Do you guys know that? Do you guys know that Parisa is
So
a
let's
water-
focus, James.
is a
Focus.
water?
You're at
Is
smell.
her,
You're at
her
smell.
ability to drink a lot of water is amazing. Keep going.
Yes, that is true. I like to be hydrated. Smell. What do you smell?
Oh, funny you should ask. In my little bachelor pad here, I bought a little aroma candle because it's important. It's meditation. It's patchouli and frankincense specifically. In case you
Okay. What do you see? And then here.
Oh, I see California green trees. Lots
thought
of
you were talking-
greenery and shrubbery of the San Fernando Tri-City Valley.
And what are you hearing?
Police, the helicopter, Popo. Yeah, a lot of. I feel like I live near some kind of landing strips because it's always flying above me. So right now it sounds like the LAPD.
Love it. All right. I will chime in on this.
Yeah.
Touching. What am I touching? Well, I have a lot of pens in front of me. But my favorite one is this one. And this is the one I usually am holding, or I'm holding this one while we're on live. So touching this, tasting the pieces of chocolate that I have next to me, because that's essential. Smelling. What am I smelling? Fresh laundry, actually. Just did a load. I am seeing my screen. I am seeing my phone screen. I'm seeing my laptop, my phone, and I'm seeing the hashtag that's underneath my name that says free too much. I request deeply, sincerely, if you hear my voice, please look that up, and please do what you can to share that hashtag as soon as you can. And what I'm hearing is I'm actually hearing the laundry a few rooms away. And I'm hearing the dog, the neighbor's dog, bark a bit. So yeah, it's a good moment. So what I have for us today is a conversation that is stemming from the last one that we had. And it was something that we touched on last time that was really a lot more complex, but really was a challenge to come forward with a level of honesty that is not had in conversation, I think, as often as it gets to. And what a better opportunity than to just do that now, right? So, and that is, as you'll see up in the title, it says protecting tangibility in a digital world. So last time, just to give some context, we talked about how when we have these elements that are intangible, we don't connect with it as much. Yes, physically, we don't connect with it as much, but our experience of it is not as deep of a connection. And when our experience is not as deep, is not as connected, we don't connect that value as much as we would have, or as much as we've had in the past. So, considering that we are in a very digital world, and that's how we're all experiencing each other here on this screen. I'm experiencing all of you in this conversation very digitally, right? And everyone experiencing this conversation with us is experiencing it digitally. So how do we protect tangibility? in a very digital world and in an increasingly digital world, and the fact that this membership thing here that we have called Creators Union is deeply digital. It's almost entirely digital. So far, it's entirely digital. How do we protect the tangibility within it? Why protect it? Because that's preserving and protecting this element of how we experience its value. Okay. In a little bit, we're going to also dive into how we just some thoughts and the narrative around NFTs and tokens and blockchain. And when I say the narrative, I'm meaning the narrative that a lot of like the mainstream media and a lot of not as informed conversations that are had that are out there. I want to dive just directly into it and really kind of solve some of these questions that I think a lot of people have, not that I think, I know that a lot of people have, and bring some light to all of it. So first things first, though, there was something, Jeff, that you said last time. You said, it like blew me away because I'm like, how many is that? If I would put it on a list and print it out, because I'm analog and I like paper and I like literally have notes for our thing, like on paper, all over very digital. You said something that blew my mind. You said there's 130,000 songs released every single day on Spotify.
Yep.
I don't even know how many pages that would be if I printed it out.
I don't think you'll listen to 130,000 songs in your lifetime.
Right.
So
I find it really hard to have the desire for accessibility for all, and to have that much out there where it can, as you mentioned last time, it just like bombards your hard drive. Like you cannot actually absorb that much, not even bits of it. You cannot.
No.
And for me, I was thinking about this, like actually the last like 2 weeks I've been thinking about this. I'm like, how do we reconcile that? Because we're all deserving of an opportunity to put things out there, to create, to have that freedom to have people experience art or whatever the thing is. And it's not actually helping us experience that much.
Yeah, we may have talked about this last week. I ended just finding that it creates an imbalance between all that goes into creating this content, like kind of and then how it's consumed. And on the you still have a similar level of effort with the majority of artists. Yes, you can do AI generation, you can jump into Fruity Loops and throw some stuff together, but most of the time, care, thought, and time has gone into creating these arts. And literally, I'm consuming it through 100,000 new songs a day as if it's disposable. It's almost impossible to reconcile what's gone into it and what the value is to it. Yeah, I mean, not to set up an impossible goal here, but to kind of lean into my experience with it in that question. I feel like it inappropriately makes art disposable. And in fact, there's so much coming in. I find a couple of other things that happen. I find it hard to develop a relationship with the song. It's one of the reasons why I say I'm stuck in the polyester of music, right? Because I have a huge playlist that is always already good to get through, and I know those things speak to me, and I connect with them. I have a relationship. But shit, I can't have a relationship with 137,000 streams. I can't have a relationship with 10% of that.
Yeah. And then it's hard because I said last week that one of the things that to me is a crazy figure eight with the mess that we are in. A lot of the off structure of the music business is what pushed everybody to say, I want to do it myself. And I kind of equated it to a club because, the first thing that a lot of people get accused of is, they're gatekeepers. They're keeping the good stuff away. But there's a side of that I kind of disagree with the fact that I feel like gatekeepers are like the security in a club. You can have bad security that gets paid underneath the table, lets the people in that they want to let in, and keep the people, that they don't like out. And then you have good security that kind of follows the rules. The one thing that I think is worse than bad security is no security. And because if you don't have security in the club is going to go to shit really fast. And I think that's basically what we're having. Yeah, we did have some bad gatekeepers that, I've had a ton of them that you start to realize that this music that I hold so dearly to me is not going to come out because one person doesn't like it. That one person is the gatekeeper. Right. But the problem is when you take the bad gatekeeper away and put no gatekeeper up, you have 130,000 songs released today that a humongous percentage of them don't even get one listen, which kind of blew me away because it's kind of like 130,000 songs and the person who owns the song don't even listen to it.
Yeah.
Interesting. Let me add one point.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I just want to double tap that because I too am stuck in the polyester. I love that, by the way, Brian. It's amazing. I guess the polyester moment that I'm having is recollection of working in the record business and how long it would take to actually put out a record and how frustrating that would be to do what we call the 16-week cycle. We built things on a 16-week cycle. And it drove me crazy because it was so long. But when I think about it, the one thing I will say is like, it took a long time because we were developing artwork and we were like building a narrative around the song. And there was like a world building around the song so that it wasn't just disposable, that, even if it went to radio and radio didn't pick it up, like it's still like an important like song. And we had many songs that like you release to radio says no, but like, it's a great record. And you still you figure out a way to get it on a movie, or you figure out a way to get, and I wonder if what you're saying right now is that we've lost that like that quality control around the actual composition itself and like protecting the composition and not just thinking about, right now we're thinking about one platform, Spotify playlisting, right? Versus like we would think about like, where does it sound in a movie? Where's it in a museum? Where, and maybe that's sort of part of the answers around the protection of the asset.
It is trying to protect. It is trying to protect the asset, but trying to figure out how to fix it, you have to fix the problem first.
Yeah.
Like you got to fix the problem. Like, if we weren't telling everybody, I'm gonna let my cousin in the club for free and stop you at the door for everybody to say, I want to open my own club, we probably wouldn't have this issue. So it's kind of like, I don't know how we can fix 130,000 songs a day. We probably need good gatekeepers back. Otherwise, it sucks because, I find myself scrolling on Instagram, and I found so many amazing musicians and producers and singers and MCs, like they're out there.
Yeah.
They're out there. And I've met people that were so talented that I'm like, wow, if this was 25 years ago, they would be out of here. So, let alone how do you nurture that new talent, when you're trying to compete with, every 10 days being, 1.45 million songs that come out. How are you gonna stand out this week?
Yeah.
I wonder, I did want to share a stat that's a rough stat I was just reading today, and it's that 90% of streaming revenue goes to 1% of streaming artists, right? And so one of the things you're highlighting, which the analogy of the Cub gets is part of the idea was stop holding people back, get everybody access, right? But in reality, we've still settled back to the majority of people still don't have access, right? Meaning I can build a fan base, people will listen to me, appreciate me, and I can collect a revenue. I tend to think, I think we hit a bit of this last week, because this is what happened with news and social media. There's good and bad, right? We had gatekeepers on news that control the voice, similar to labels, but we at least could have some confidence about some checks and some colleague control. I feel like there's something in, you still need gatekeepers. I'd almost say, I mean this metaphorically, democratically elected gatekeepers. We need gatekeepers, but we need to hold them accountable, which then maybe speaks to this idea of community. Let's go out and create multiple reasonable sized clubs with community members that hold the gatekeepers accountable, metaphorically.
Okay, I have a question regarding this. It's two questions. So the first one, and then I'll have a follow-up to it. This is coming from a question in the chat. And it says, if I can click on it, wouldn't the algorithms of these platforms basically serve as the modern day gatekeepers, for better or for worse? So Jeff, I'd like you to dive into that one because I have a follow-up question to that, to clarify that.
Well, the algorithm isn't gatekeeping good and bad. It's gatekeeping more and less. The more money that you pay, the more open the algorithm is. So this isn't someone doing quality control. If somebody's putting out something that sounds like shit and put the right amount of money, you're just going to be hearing a bunch of shit. Like, frankly speaking, so no, the algorithm doesn't, first of all, an algorithm is not going to tell me what's good and what's bad. Let's start there. I would be more comfortable if it was a person than an algorithm, and that would only matter if this was a question of good and bad, not, if you got $50, I'm gonna let you get to 1,000 people. And if you got $100, I'm gonna let you get to 2,000 people. And if you got, that doesn't serve the music community any good, because it's kind of like, now it kind of turns into what can you afford?
Can I add to that? Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna get in trouble for what I'm about to say. So
I'm always in trouble.
Lynette's here, so we're good.
We're good. Okay. Well, in the spirit of Clarence Avon, I couldn't just let this one necessarily go away. What we're dealing with is the algorithm is controlled. It's a squelch that's controlled. The pipes are controlled, in Sweden, Spotify, and somewhere else, Tidal, and Cupertino, Apple, they control the pipes. And to Jeff's point, the more money that you spend, then it gets a little easier to go through the pipes, which gives you more access. And, many, 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 many years ago, we used to have a way of getting records played on the radio where more money you spent with what we call an indie promoter would mean that you would hear the record more often. And there were certain key stations similar to Spotify, Tidal, Apple, PGC, KMEL, WGCI in Chicago, that if the record played on those stations, people followed those stations.
Yep.
And you had it, but it cost more money because you had to pay more people to open up their algorithm. I'm using that metaphorically for you old school people, but essentially it's the same exact thing. We just, the government came in and created some laws against, payola. But the reality is the new, gatekeepers of the new radio stations are essentially these platforms, and the same rules apply to new technology. But the same system of determining that to Jeff's point, if you don't have a lot of money, it's going to be hard to get on a bunch of playlists. And if you got a lot of money, then you get on a bunch of playlists. And that's what makes it. Yeah.
I'm going to cut you off, but I think the thing that bothers me about that part is, at least back in the day, if you didn't have money to pay a radio station to play your stuff, you could get records pressed up and you could almost sell them out the back of your car to a neighborhood of people that would buy records, CDs, cassettes, going back to that tangible thing, that a lot of times records broke that way. Okay, the radio station doesn't want to play it, but if everybody in New Orleans is blasting Master P, listen, the radio is going to follow the people. So they start playing Master P, and then somebody in another state starts saying, what is that? Everybody on the street is playing this. Every car that goes by is playing that. We don't have that ability anymore. Once we took the tangible asset away and put it in the cloud, you can't sell cloud storage out the back of your car.
Exactly.
So that level of independence and being able to cut through the madness is gone.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, it's funny that you brought that up because it came before. I think so. Coming from the Bay Area, right? In a sense, honestly, I think Too Short and his cassettes were a bit of what I see as the original blockchain-based distribution. I know that's for later conversation. We'll unwrap it, right? But I had cousins in Chicago sitting on Too Short tapes, right? I just thought that was an interesting call out. And I do believe, as we'll get into, though, that we have some technological mechanisms that will allow us to sort of recreate the slinging tapes out of the back of your trunk in a way where those dollars come direct to you and you have an idea what's being slung, right? We're gonna sling tapes out of the blockchain trunk. Right.
So with all of these critiques and very open communication and conversation about the things that haven't worked, don't work, will not continue to work, all of these things, right? Jeff, what are the characteristics of a good gatekeeper? What does that look like?
Well, first of all, you have to understand that it's all subjective.
Right.
But sometimes you trust, like, okay, if I put this as the gatekeeper of the NBA, the reason why we have inside the NBA is Ernie is a longtime sports broadcaster, so he knows, and you have Shaq, Kenny, and Charles Barkley, who are three amazing, experienced basketball players. When you tell me about basketball, I want to hear that shit from them. I don't want to listen. I get the barbershop talk, and that's cool. But when I want to know my facts, or I want to know why someone did something, I want to hear it from someone who has a certain level of experience. So I think when we're talking music, you kind of need somebody that has some level of musical experience. You might not like their opinion, but at least you know that they have somewhat of experience to be gatekeeping or letting out, because this really comes, like I said, music is is relative. It's if you like it or not. But somebody who I can't let 130,000 people in a club, I'm gonna have to pick the people who are dressed nice.
Right.
I love that analogy. Okay, Lynette, please, I want you to dive in on this because you touched a bit on this last time we started to talk about it. So I'd love to give you a chance to hop in on this because you're dressed nice today too, so we can let you in.
Am I? First off, I was thinking about how we were talking about how payola is illegal, but now it's called a boost post.
Thank you.
And I'm
There
like,
it is.
but the difference is that you couldn't have tracked money exchanging hands so that other people could tap into the payola, whereas you can when you're paying and doing it all online. Just wanted to just thought I would just throw that back
Zuckerberg
out.
is the real Philly South Jersey gangster.
That is been deemed a fact. No, I'm not saying
Yeah.
it's not a
Yeah,
fact.
yeah.
That is an opinion based
No,
on my perception of the industry before I end up getting in trouble for something. Can't say it's a fact. But no, so there was that. And I also think, as I'm looking in these comments, like, you know me, I'm a word, look, it says word nerd for a reason. I'm a stickler for semantics. And so I want to caution away from gatekeeper. And I don't know if we need to find another word because I don't know. It just has a bad connotation. I know the essence of exactly what you mean, but I also know how the interwebs love to get caught up in semantics, and I'm here to make sure those things don't happen. So everybody in the chat that's talking about gatekeeping's bad, the man is bad, like the word gatekeeping gets a bad rap. Let's all just put it there. It's fine.
So the security.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
So the security.
Yeah.
Security get a bad rap.
But I think it's a little bit different when you're talking about now. Like gatekeeping and curating to me are two completely different things. And I think that we should stop using gatekeeper and start using curator, because if you think about the art world, you trusted a curator because you trusted their taste. Now, each one has their own, and you as the consumer or connoisseur of whatever this thing is could follow the curator you liked, the gallery you liked. I'm just using art. But in general, I think that's more of what I know. That's what more of what you mean is just having there be someone who is a trusted authority in some way, or at least a knowledge base and experience, good taste that's been proven, being allowed to, you know, guide people to what is considered good quality. But again, like I said, we all know what you meant. But I just know that the internet loves to get caught up in the stuff that's not always the most important, and let's focus on the thing.
I think, well, interestingly enough, I'm pleased with how everybody in the chat, and by the way, everybody, we are watching all your threads interacting, kind of got gatekeeper and embraced it. But I agree with you fully. And again, you know, obviously we have a curator, not a gatekeeper here, but a guide that we can use to discover music we can make a relationship with here in Jeff and James, who is also DJ Rich Cacao. What it did dawn on me, though, is what streaming, you know, the death of the radio DJ, right? Streaming killed the radio DJ. Yeah, anyway, I agree with you 100%, word nerd. Lynette, thank you for clarifying that.
To touch on a bit of what you said, Lynette, I think that these, someone in one of the chats mentioned the term guardian or steward. I love the term steward. It holds so much meaningful weight because there's so much intentionality and respect for whatever it is, you know, you're stewarding over. But something you had touched on about these curators, and something that we mentioned last time was about, I have it written, it's the, you know, is the value in the music or the medium. And I think it really is so important for us to connect in this conversation that these curators, as this new term we can kind of use interchangeably now, these are the people that really help connect the value to the music, the value being in the music, versus the default going to whatever the medium is. If the medium is, I'm not saying the medium is bad, because the medium can be whatever the medium is. However, if it's the music that is the desire to really connect to and experience that value of, I think it's these curators that really hold that, not the power, but they hold great impact or potential impact to really help people connect with the value being in the music.
Mm-hmm.
So, Jeff, if there's anything you'd like to touch on that, I'd love to hear some of your thoughts before we shift a bit in this conversation.
You know, it's funny. That is the Magnificent House Party. That is most of the DJs. I mean, I know there's some DJs that are forced to have to play what someone tells them to play. But you know, I often talk about before, you know, we got into this Radio One thing that everybody could own a radio station. I remember driving with my my mom and my sister down to our family reunion in Virginia, and driving through Philly, listening to Philly radio. And when we got to Baltimore, it was the hit records that you knew, but it was also Baltimore stuff that I didn't know. And I enjoyed that. And it was the same thing when we got to Virginia, that you kind of heard the sound of the city, but you heard the sound of the nation too. But you kind of got a chance to taste some of the local cuisine musically. And I think, like, that was a really good mix to be able to know what was, what was hot in certain places. But it got to a point that you can pretty much drive from Philadelphia to California and hear the exact same playlist. Because the radio stations are told you got to play this song, this song, this song, this song, that there's no real variety. When it first started, the variety was with the DJ and the mix shows. And then that kind of went away because a lot of the DJs were told you can't really play music outside of this playlist that we're told that we have to play. And then it just became sterile. The fact that I can play whatever I want, however long I want, I don't have those radio station rules of the song has to be. I remember when it was don't make a song over 4 minutes. Then it went to don't make a song over 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Now it's almost like the song got to be 2 minutes and we got to be done because of the short attention span. But it's kind of like to be able to play that Luther Vandross or that Parliament Funkadelic record that was 15 minutes long and you enjoyed every single piece of it. You almost have to get away from the traditional structure and the way that things were done. So I'm just kind of like, yes, the somewhat the DJs were the curators. A really good DJ is Rich Medina is an amazing curator. Natasha Diggs is an amazing curator. Like, they might not play shit that you heard, but they're always going to take you on some level of a musical journey that can't be predicted. I don't want to be able to predict the end of every movie that I watch. I want the surprise. I want the usual suspect and the dude walks straight at the end. And I'm like, oh shit, I didn't see that coming. That's kind of how you want to give music and have those musical experiences, or the way that we used to have those musical experiences. So yes, we do need people. I don't want to sound selfish. We do need people like me that will curate something and give somebody something that they can't expect. You have all of the time in the world to curate your own playlist now. But I want to go and see what he curates. And what happens is once you get people to trust your curation, that's when you start to build a fan base. That's when people say, oh man, I'm just gonna rock with him because he's always gonna give me something that I can't drive home from work and turn on the radio, and those same 10 songs that someone paid them to play, I'm gonna get something a little bit different.
Yeah.
Jeff, where do you get your variety from?
Other like-minded people like myself. Like like I said, I'll scour the internet, and if I hear something that I think is good, I grab it, I put it in, and I figure out a way to present it to people. But that's me. You don't have to be famous, you don't have to be rich, you don't have to give me $1. If I think this shit is dope, I'm going to present it to somebody, because that's how I used to set my crates up. I used to go on the wall and pull stuff down, and I'm going to pull stuff that you know, and I'm going to pull a bunch of stuff that you don't know, because I like the reaction of, I enjoy streaming now and someone say, hey, Jeff put me on to this band, right, called Giddy Gang from Norway. Hey, Jeff put me on. I didn't know that much about Salt, and Jeff put me on. Like, I enjoy that. Because if I'm discovering it and I'm saying, oh my God, this is amazing, I want the people that listen to me to say the same thing.
Yep.
Yeah. I would want to throw in my two primary discovery sources for new music outside of the likes of Jeff, right? And tuning in, and my algorithmically generated Apple Music stream. I do discover stuff there. Is the homie group thread, right? We all come across songs, stumbling, you know. So we're doing kind of community curation, putting each other on songs, and then, frankly, honestly, it's television and movies. I am constantly sitting there with Shazam. We, as like Raphael Sadiq is music coordinator or director for a couple of shows. Michelle Diacello, right? I end up finding that somewhere in those shows I pick up a new track that I fall in love with. So I just thought I'd share the homie thread and Shazam watching TV.
You know what? It's interesting because I do find myself to be like a Shazam McBurglar. I'm always like I feel like McBurglar. Yo, for real. Remember McBurglar? You know McBurglar.
Yes.
But that's how I feel.
Teresa's like, here goes these references.
Right. So McBurglar for you kids was in the 80s. It was McDonald's little thief, little rogue, little badass hamburger.
Okay. The hamburger. That's it.
I know what that is.
Okay. Right. I gave his own name. But seriously though, I feel like the world, because I travel so much, I go to so many cities, like there's also like a warmth and depth of like how a record sounds in a certain venue. So sometimes I'm in the lobby of a dope hotel and it's the way that this Brazilian drum is hitting in that particular room. And I'm like, ooh, I'll like literally stop. I'll be in a conversation. Parisa will tell you. I'll be like, oh, wait a minute, hold on. Like I can't even take it because it's filling up this room. And shout out to Soho House that actually did that to me yesterday when I was there. I was like, oh man, they playing this. They played like a J. Cole mix of Can I Kick It or a Tribe Called Quest. I was like, oh, dang, that's crazy. Where you get that from? So I do like being a hamburglar. But I just want to also shout out that I happen to spend 3 days with Rich Medina and Just Blaze and all these guys. And to your point, man, I remember going to Rich Medina parties, Jumpin' Funk, West Africa. There was nobody talking about Fela Kuti. No one even knew what a Fela Kuti was. And he literally brought West Africa into New York City at his Jumpin' Funk parties. And then the play gets made. Jay-Z and all the folks invest in the play that goes to Broadway. But pre all of that, like making the composition into a brand that people knew, it was Rich Medina who by himself ushered in West Africa to New York City. I tell him that all the time. And I would know nothing about Fela. And then I also got to give a shout out to Louis Vega. I would know nothing about Hector Lavoe. Absolutely nothing. Like Hector Lavoe's voice is like an instrument, man. And shout out to Louis who just said, "Yo, this is my uncle." Hector Lavoe. He preserved the life of Hector Lavoe in such a beautiful way. So yeah, I want to shout them out. Those are my curators.
Good ones.
I do know, Parisa, at some point when you talk tangibility, I'm dying to,
Yeah.
Smell, taste, touch, feel, right? But you let me know when I could go Brian Unleashed Unplugged.
Right. Hey, you know what? I like it. It's adding some tangibility to the conversation. Actually, we're going to dive into that now. We're at the mark where we're going to dive into that. So what we're diving into is really addressing the value of tangibility with music, considering that we are in a streaming world, right? Everything is digital. It's on a screen. It's not even like a click. It's more like a tap, which is even less of a touch point, right? So if you're not necessarily super familiar with this, anytime we experience anything, the more senses that are involved, as in the 5 senses, the touch, taste, smell, see, and hear, the more senses that are involved, the more intense and more like immersive an experience becomes. So whenever we take away one of the senses, the experience itself becomes a little more dull. It's a little less vibrant. It's a little less palatable. Okay.
Wow.
So being that we have a very digital world here and everyone, including myself, is experiencing this on a screen, we're very intangible. It's crucial that we really keep this tangibility piece intact. It's crucial that we protect the tangibility within these experiences, within what we create, with what we put out there. And so I want to dive into that because there's an aspect of creating I want to say like just to having merch, right, be attached to a project or a launch. But there's a difference in having something that's tangible that helps really create the fullness of the experience. And one thing that I really connect with in this that is like so readily available is the way MagMob has kind of created its own like life in its own world. And not being someone that wasn't a part of MagMob, and I'm on the outside getting to witness what this looks like, witness the connections, witness the liveliness, the vibrancy. You have this group of people who tune into your live stream, Jeff, that they're not just sitting there watching you on the screen. They're there wherever they're at and they're dancing. And dancing helps connect that piece of tangibility.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because you're involving the full body. And it's something that's so simple. Yeah, it's something that's so key because I'm now witnessing all of these people. You like the bonds are incredible.
Mm-hmm.
It is so felt. It's so real. There's no false pretense about it. It's just like humans being human, actually connecting and enjoying and appreciating and experiencing life together
Mm-hmm.
while having connected on a very intangible experience in a season of life at the beginning of COVID when everyone was separated.
Yeah.
So although it being very digital at that point wasn't the focus, it was the force function, right? So I think that yes, with MagMob, everyone really connecting and that culture being created is its own entity. And how can we create these experiences? How can we create those pieces of tangibility in other things, other moments, other offerings, other products, anything that's digital? How can we do that? Because we can't deny its significance here.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, the fact that this all kicked off when none of us could, use pretty much the only sense that you could would be sight and hearing. But I think, it was funny. Very early on, I did a live stream for Earth, Wind, and Fire. And it was like a celebration. It was people from all over the globe. And I curated this set that I didn't want to do the typical Reasons and Serpentine Fire and Shining Star. I started digging into the albums when they had the female in the group. I started digging into songs like Mom and just going a little bit deep. And we did this live stream and they had it on a Zoom. This was one of the early Zooms. And what I'll tell you, it sounded horrible, but I was just, plowing through and just, playing these songs. But it was people from all over the globe that were Earth, Wind, and Fire fans. And when it was done, I remember Lynette was moderating. She was moderating from the kitchen. And when we were done, I walked in and Lynette looked at me and she said, I got the next thing that we're going to do. And what we decided to do is create a Zoom room for the MagMob. Like I know you're out there. I can't see you. You can see me, but we're going to create something that I can see you. And that's what started the back and forth connection and the back and forth community, with them. All the way down to the point, the early Zoom rooms we would laugh because no one knew what to do. Because this experience was so new. If first of all, I was talking to somebody today, and I was saying from a musical space and a DJ space, streaming didn't exist. Not for us. That all started during the pandemic. Yeah, it might have been a couple of people that, had streamed once, or did something, but from the magnitude that it became, it really didn't exist. So just as much as we were learning the technology and how to put it out there, everybody else had to learn the technology of how to receive it. So, I'm pretty sure there was a lot of people that was like, listen, I'm in my pajamas and I got, I'm in my pajamas with the feet on, and I'm sitting in my living room and I'm looking at you on an iPad, and all of a sudden my face comes up. Because you would literally see people and they would get on camera and you would see them jump, and it's kind of like they had to learn. Fast forward a year later, and we got people like Brown Brother Fly with 19 TVs in his basement and a disco ball. Like it completely changed. People started to understand because you had to educate them. And that's pretty much my point. If we're trying to move this to other instances, you have to make sure that your audience is knowledgeable. This is a new journey for people, and you have to guide them along the journey. Just because we can't expect that everybody else been, and you have to kind of guide them along. And what I love is the Magma became a community that started teaching the new members how to interact. Like there were people like, yo, what is this? How do I get in the Zoom room? Oh my God, this is great. And it becomes a learning process that, you look up, and 400 shows later, we're just ushering new people. Like we got it. We understand what this is. We've had Halloween parties that we gave out prizes for costumes. How can you do that when everybody is stuck in the house? You needed to create something that allowed that community to go back and forth.
I have a question I want to kind of pose to the group and the chat and everywhere. And I guess, Parisa, you seem to be somewhat of an expert on the sense thing. So if we talk about 5 senses, is there a minimum, if you will? Like, do you understand what I'm saying? Like, I think about it like, if I go to a concert, there is a full, all sensory, like, it's everything. You're going to smell, taste, feel, all of it. But when it comes to us talking about experiences in a digital space or a digital product, what would be the parameters? What would people think of as parameters for getting a certain amount of sensory stimulation?
That's a really good question. I love that. I love questions that I haven't thought of myself and asked myself. And that's one of them. I would say there's not a minimum. I would say it's about intentionality. I would say that whoever is creating or curating with whatever the objective is in mind, think about whatever that objective is that it's in mind. What do you want the ultimate experience to be? And you don't have to have all 5 senses be incorporated. However, are certain ones focused on? And how do you set the tone for that? How do you create the culture for that? Because just like Jeff, you'd mentioned that, you get to meet people, in my words, I'm saying like you get to meet people where they're at. And that's how they're going to come along with you and you go along together. If you're not able to really meet people where they're at, and then you have others that help educate and teach and show and guide along the way, then it gets lost in translation. And then that richness of the experience or the intended experience is not going to be had. So I think it's really about what the ultimate idea is, the ultimate objective is, and then reverse engineer it. Because I even think about it in a very practical sense, like some people that don't have, like, lost their sense of smell or lost their sense of taste, right? Or that do not have hearing, or they have they're hearing impaired. Like, I think about all these things as it even pertains to this idea. And again, you don't have to have all five, but what kind of intentionality are you placing before yourself? What kind of culture are you creating to really help connect with whatever senses are the focus here? Does that answer you at all?
Yeah, I don't think it I didn't have like a right or wrong answer in mind. I was just really curious, just something to ponder over, just when it comes to, since we were talking about music, okay, so you're streaming music, so you hear it, but then what?
You know
And
what?
Can I, can,
I want to add to this really quick. Hold on, James, before I lose the train of thought. I'm like, I had it and then it went away and then I have it again. Okay. So this goes back to the 130,000 songs that Jeff mentioned earlier, where there's no way we can take in and really sit with and chew on all of these songs,
Mhm.
right? So we become more dismissive of what's coming in, or like what we're being exposed to.
Mm.
And so if we can be aware of that, because that is the case when it comes to social media, when it comes to anything on the internet, right? We're constantly bombarded with input.
Mhm.
And if that fact can be really, really taken into account about how we're actually creating experiences for ourselves first, it's going to naturally impact everyone else. Because if we're operating from a place of that we're already full, our capacity is for I think you guys described as like our hard drive is already full, it's already maxed out. If that's how we're operating from, if we're operating from a maxed out hard drive, then how rich of that experience is it even for us? So I think it really starts with being mindful of where your hard drive's at, and what senses you are wanting to incorporate, and then having the diligence and the discipline to learn how to articulate what that would be.
can I add something to that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I want to bring in another sense that is one I'm kind of creating on the fly. I
Leave
kind of
it to just make a new sense.
Exactly.
that's the way
Exactly. You're like, I'll just make up a new one.
No,
Hey,
that's
I
the way
love it, though.
that's why I interpreted Lynette's question. So Lynette's question to me was this idea of like, are there senses that we haven't created? And it had me thinking about something, because you know that I manage communities, and I just came off of like managing TED community in WhatsApp and then DJing for them at physically. So I've been talking to them all year long, and then they all showed up to hear me DJ in Vancouver. And the sense that I want to bring up for conversation is a sense of belonging. Like there's something about digital belonging that I think permeates when I think about my 12-year-old nephew in Philly, who, is talking to kids in Finland, on Discord. And my brother's like, yo, why is he doing that? Like, why is he in the other room talking to his friend? Because he feels a sense of belonging in that digital community. And like one of the kids' fathers passed away, and like he was crying in his room, and my brother was calling me like, yo, he's like crying over this kid he met in Finland. His dad died. I'm like, it's because he belongs there. He sees himself. That's his crew. And so I wonder if, like, as we move from Web 2.0, right, into like this follower world, into true community, what you end up inheriting, hopefully, in this new digital transition is this new sense of belonging, which is what I felt when I was at South by Southwest, and I was with the Mad Mob. I was like, wow, this is like I just fell into someone's like family reunion. You ever snuck into a family reunion? Don't lie. So you ever like just pull up? I literally felt as like, oh, I'm in the family, and no one questions, because in our communities we're like, yeah, that must be your cousin. Boom, he's in. Oh, that's Parisa. She's a cousin. Boom. Give her a plate of food. Go give her some macaroni and cheese, and you are family. We are, and there's something about the belonging one. I think hip hop has done such a beautiful way of bringing people in. Doesn't matter where you're from, you're Korean, you're Brazilian, you're whatever.
Mhm.
Hip hop has room at the family barbecue for everybody. And I wonder if that's the new sense that we sort of tap into, is a sense of belonging.
James, I have to jump in because I've been sitting on kind of that for about 15 minutes, and I think, amen. There is something about, it's not the tribe, it's the wrong word, but we are social beings, right? And orienting around the experience of an artist or the experience of Magmob, it's why that makes us feel good and attracts us to a particular music genre or community. That yes, we have new avenues to replace it, but I think just leaning in on the 137,000 streams a day, it's so fragmented. You're just listening to a song. You're not savoring the experience and getting the ability to get that sixth sense that you're talking about, James, right? Like, I belong, I am part of a community, part of a tribe. Now, Magmob is a great example of how, and the experience with these fantastic, I mean, look at these, every time I look at a Magmob chat, Lynette and Jeff and Magmob here, I'm amazed, right? Like, it is fam. And I think what the individual artist has to be able to do is, I'll say another thing. Keep in mind that it's ironic that digital is digital because it means discrete, binary, zeros or ones. It's inherently not, at its base, is not organic, continuous, infinite, right? And so one of the things we get as our primary consumption of music becomes streaming, is we get a natural flattening of the music experience, to your point. And here, I got to get my plug in. Look, I'm going to look at Ohio Player's album. There's a whole journey that we lose, right? For a lot of people, you cut this baby open, you smell it, right? You feel the vinyl, you read the liner notes, you see who produced it. You get, forgive me if this offends anybody, right? You get imagery that, at least for a lot of young males, we'll remember for the rest of our life.
Ohio Players albums all day.
right?
All day.
But kind of jumping on my track that I want to throw, because I agree with the community part. I also agree that the tangibility of it and the senses should be and can be a continued journey from, and as we digital flattens things, we can't serve pictures along with it, or we don't traditionally. We don't serve lyrics or liner notes or production credits or the backstory of how it was created. So the digital flattening of the way we consume our music strips out a lot of extra context that is the basis for us building a relationship with what we listen to. And to your point, James, I think online communities and technology thoughtfully deployed can help us replace that.
Can I just add one thing? Because it's crazy. I've been thinking about this because I'm heavy in my edits right now, and I DJ with one of my friends, Anthony Denby. He just out edited me. So he had every edit ever for any record, and I was like, he's like, I know he's gonna be mad. And I DJ'd after him, and so I just started going into this journey of edits, and I was also thinking about positive usages of AI. And I was in the shower and listening to this Stevie Wonder edit, and I was like, the whole time I'm like, oh my gosh, look how much room they left me. Look at all the horns they gave me. I just saw the composition elongated of all my favorite parts of this digital composition, right? Like they took your favorite horn part of the Stevie Wonder song and they gave it to you over I was like, oh, that's beautiful. And so I was thinking about positive usages of a composition. Man, that's where the curator comes in. The great curator knows exactly that bell, exactly that drum, exactly that background. And I'm listening to SoundCloud and I'm like, man, there's a whole generation of people that really appreciate the craft, down to like the way someone at a barista in a coffee joint is going to talk to you about a bean for 30 minutes. You know what I mean? Like there's some craftsmanship and there's some craftsmen out there. These keyboards behind me, these are my cousin Xavier's keyboards. Like He's preserving keyboards in his studio. A bunch of people are really thinking about the preservation of it. And I just was thinking about it relative to music, man. There's just some people who are doing, as a part of the 130,000 songs that are released, we probably haven't even counted SoundCloud, where there's like a bajillion edits and mixes that are released every day. And just, some really amazing people who are taking their time with these compositions.
You just made me think of something that we might need to explore. I think we talked, Jeff and I have this running joke about Instagram, right? And about our algorithm and what we want to see. And I said, it is my life's work to say that all I want to see is good music, food, and puppies. I don't want to see anything else. And so I want to see recipes, food, recipes and food. I want to see puppies and music. And so how intentional I became in changing who I follow and even really using those not interested and all of those things, I started thinking of that and doing more of that with my Spotify and actually clicking the people I follow, like following the people, right? And things like that. And so I noticed that, for better or for worse, if we figure out a way that between the curators, as in the DJs and tastemakers, paired with that discipline thing that you brought up, Parisa, and this is what made me kind of think about it, like the sensory and all of that, is creating the environment for yourself and the discipline to, be intentional about it. We have to figure out, that's an exercise that we might want to do with people and just say, hey, we're going to do a screen share and watch Jeff curate his Spotify. And say, all right, everybody look and watch Jeff, and he's gonna scroll through here. These are here's who I'm clicking. Oh, I'm gonna follow them, because you start out with the basis of the artist you like. And then over time you discover more and actually click those and see just how much smarter, if it's possible.
I would watch that all day. I would literally just watch him.
You will watch that?
I would watch that channel. That would be a crazy channel to watch someone how they curate as a curator.
I don't
listen. That's what I was telling you about DJ Markey.
Who?
Like
when I told you the story about DJ Markey in Brazil.
No.
Listen, in the middle of the pandemic, it might have been from Daniel Crawford, Kaidi Tatham, Stro Elliott, James Poyser, and DJ Markey from Brazil would go to the wall. And he has a massive record collection. He would pull the record off of the wall. He would take the cover to the camera and show it, the front cover and the back cover. He would take the record out and he would play it. We watched that shit for 6 hours. It was the most amazing thing in the world because he curated it.
But yeah, but I'm saying because you all are great to that, you're the purists, right? The pros, the audio, the professionals and all of that. And there are others that are in there, but I'm talking about just for if what we're hoping to accomplish is for the greater good of the community, right? Like, I think that taking it a little bit more broadly is, hey, everybody, I love music. I love all things music. I'm not going to get as caught up in what drum was used, what keyboard, what plug-in was used, what all of that stuff. I know about it by occupational hazard, but I don't get lost in it in that way. And I know feelings when I feel them. And I want to rely on people like you to give me language for those feelings, but I'm not really interested in going so deep to learn it for myself, and that's why I'm saying I just really want us to take some time, literally. And I know I'm not the only person who feels that way, that I'm just like, so Jeff, was 5 to 10, say 20, I don't know, if we're doing this for 35 minutes, an hour, he hit follow on these 20 artists that I had never heard of before. And, because then I've done this where I'm able to say, all right, well, just let the little Spotify algorithm play, not that radio DJ thing, because that thing is trash, but just in general, like the if you like this and let it play, you know, I've picked up on a couple of songs that I've loved that I ended up sending Jeff that I had never heard of. So I've seen how it can work well. And I just think that drawing more attention to making these tools, because they're not going away, drawing more attention to making these tools serve the purpose we actually want them to, so that we control it more to the extent that we can, I think would go a long way. And and it creates that level of tangibility, because now you are invested, because you're making intentional choices about controlling the environment and the experience that you're able to create for yourself. And
I think it gives it more deliberate, Lynette. I love it. Just to underline it, score, co-sign it, is one is part of we're talking about I just describe as connection. I've used this word relationship to the music. The songs I love, I have a relationship to them. And I think that physical act of actually deliberately engaging, even to try to steer the algorithm, one kind of helps establish that connection to the music versus just being sounds and bits that flow past you. I also think it does a couple of things, though. It's one, that part of building a connection with, say, Jeff, in sort of opening the door and allowing you to see what happens behind the scene. But it also gives us a way to experience somebody like DJ Jazzy's Jeff's curation in a more efficient manner in this mad world, right? I may not always be able to sit down and listen to a 2-hour set, but if I watch how he decides what I like, I pick up what he likes, I pick up what he likes, I gain that. And then lastly, the genius in I think in a surprisingly powerful idea is I also hear you saying he's teaching us how to better interact with our streaming platforms to get what we need out of them, right? Oh, and one more thing while I had the mic. I do want to know what snare drum plug in, so don't write it off for all of us, right? But
well, there's space for that. That's my point, though. It's like you could actually have both of those things being accomplished, in a number of ways. There's an entire production live stream series completely dedicated to that.
Parisa, you know what this reminds me of, and maybe we can talk about this later. I know I don't want to take up all the rest of the time, but just a thought. Last week, when I was at TED, there was this conversation about taste and where does taste come from? And Parisa actually one time asked me, she was like, someone called me a tastemaker. Like, what's a tastemaker? And I remember having this conversation with her, and I was like, as a pre-internet music marketer, which I need to define that, it is important, like that because those of us that marketed things before the internet and after the internet, it's different. I've done both. I'm just saying. And but before the internet, like someone in New York City either had taste or they didn't. There was no followers. Like that was just someone who really understood sneakers or understood like a great restaurant, a great hotel. Like they weren't like trying to become famous for being someone who knows how to find a good vinyl store. And there was a question last week at TED that was basically like, in a world of infinite possibilities of Mid-Journey being able to paint whatever picture you want to paint, what's the role of taste and the importance of taste? And it just became a question that I just like started like running with, is this idea of like, is taste inherent? And can you cultivate it? And I sort of landed on this idea of like travel and experiences. Taste is a result of like having these amazing experiences. I always say Jeff is the first person to take me to Europe. And I remember landing in Paris and literally hearing this radio station called Radio Nova. And I was like, what the heck just happened to my brain? Because they play Bjork and Wu-Tang in the same block. I was like, wait a minute. Like you can do that? In America, we don't have that. And I feel like traveling Europe gave me this new sensibility and new sense of taste because I had that experience. The same thing happened in Brazil and all these other places. But I think, but like whether you travel or can't travel, because that's what the internet can bring you, is like how much time are you spending in the Persian room? You know what I'm saying? How much time are you spending in the other rooms where beautiful, I discovered Gagoosh who's an amazing Iranian singer because I started DJing in the Persian room, you know. So anyway, I think that there's like, how do we actually travel, either jump on a plane or use the internet to go in the rooms where no one's really hanging out at?
Yeah.
What?
Let's go.
Yeah,
Go for it.
I just want to call this out. So many first props to Twitch who are really leaning on standards, open source, digital, and blockchain. I think we'll have a conversation for those people there later. But I did just want to call out this commenter on YouTube, and they said music consumption for some can be like taking a shot of liquor, probably cheap liquor, or swirling around cognac in a glass to enjoy every sip.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks to the census.
You are the tastemaker. if you're the tastemaker, you can't define how someone tastes.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? You can only just put it out. But I think that's, you know, the taking away the restrictions that sometimes we have of playing music has allowed you to serve a really, really great meal, because it consists of everything. Like, that was, I think, the biggest thing that I fell in love with streaming was the fact that I wasn't owing to a dance floor. I didn't have to keep the floor packed. That allowed me to go into folders and crates that I wouldn't normally play and play it. Like, I've done sets that I don't know if there's a place on the planet that I could have did that set other than on a stream, and it might have been one of my most successful sets. So it's just having the ability to be a tastemaker, because, you know, if you're not careful, the entities can take the ability to be a tastemaker away from you.
Yeah, that part.
Mm.
You know what's crazy? I just want to shout out, odd algorithmic fun little thing is Shazam. When you go in the back of Shazam and you find the songs you Shazammed and you create a radio station from one of those songs, it's been the best algorithm that I've actually played with. It's really an odd little trick there. But for some reason, the songs they give you in the back of Shazam are really, really good. So, hey, whoever is building Shazam, great job.
Because you can't boost it.
Ooh, because you can't boost it. That's what it is.
And also, I'll say it's your most authentic self in that way. You can't fake what you choose to Shazam. Like, when you try to, there's people who want their algorithm to be a thing, but if they keep in their brains the version of themselves they want to be may not necessarily be the version of themselves that their algorithm is showing them. You know, if you keep saying you don't want to look at, I don't know, news, but every single time you're shown news, you look at it, it's going to show it to you. And I think that what happens with Shazam is that you're not thinking about it. You're just kind of like, oh, and if it catches you, there's a reason you did it, right? It's not as you have to take an action in order
you
for
have to take a tangible action, so to say, right?
You have to take an action with Shazam in order for Shazam to do the thing.
Yeah.
Whereas if you don't take an action, it's useless. Whereas if you don't take an action on Instagram, it's going to keep feeding you stuff that if you passively continue to consume it, it's just going to.
Oh my gosh, you sound like Parisa. Parisa has the cleanest. She has the cleanest. She's all puppies, like straight up. Like, I've never seen anybody with more puppies and one particular breed of puppies.
Oh,
well, dogs. All the counts, you come up on my thing. I see them all. I see all the dogs. It brings me a lot of joy.
I'm slowly opening myself up to it. It's you kind of got to think about it like it's not just puppies now. It's like, okay, well, what types of people? Who do I want to align with? What ideas do I want to align with? And not echo chamber, but just more who's enlightening and who's giving me something or teaching me something or giving me something thought provoking and putting it out there. And I think we take those actions in a much more effective way with Shazam. And now I'm gonna start using my Shazam more often. Thanks, James, because I'm just thinking about that. Like,
I just, I think the community that we had going into the record store and allowing the guy behind the counter, I used to go in a record store, Funko Mart in Philly, and there was a guy, Joey Blanco, who was one of the guys. He was a DJ, but he was the record guy, and Joey would literally see me come in the store, and he would just grab a stack of records, and while I'm searching, he's playing. And all I had to do is stick my thumb in the air, and he knew to put it to a side.
That was your Shazam.
And it was so funny because people would go in the store with me, and I would stick my thumb in the air and look at him, and he would do this, asking me if I want 1 or 2 copies. And if I said 2, he put 2 aside. So on top of what I grabbed, he was curating stuff for me that oh man, you might like this. This just came in the store. But once again, if this just came in the store, he might have got 40 records that week, not 130 that day.
Right.
Like, man, I wouldn't have had no thumbs if you'd have been doing that. But I think the community, being in the store and talking to people about music, I think that's what I was really trying to create, and playing this. I have guys like Just Neil, who would just, who's a longtime friend of mine, from the UK. And Just Neil would just send me an email with about 8 or 9 songs. And it would just be like, you know what? Hey, man, check these out. And almost every time, 8 or 9 of these songs I'm going to play at some point in time. One of the guys that I get my edits from, he'll listen to me DJ and listen to me play something, and the next week he makes an edit like, hey, I heard you play that, here's another version that you can play. That's where I get all of my edits from. I may literally, on top of me doing my own edits, I may literally get 500-600 pieces of music a week. And you go through them. You go through it, but I'll take that. It's not 130,000.
You know what? I just want to say something. First of all, thank you. Now I can't wait till I achieve status where people are sending me edits. Shout out if you have edits. Please send them to me, by the way. But it reminds me of being in Berlin or Cologne with Jeff. I had my first time in Europe, and first of all, the name, what was his name? Joey what?
Blanco. Joey Blanco.
There's not a more Philly name than that, by the way. I just want to point it out. That's the most Philly shit I've ever heard. Okay. But I went to Germany with Jeff, and literally they're waiting stacks of records. As soon as we get off the plane, we go straight to the vinyl store. And literally, I'm like, what the hell? I spent my first 3 hours from the airport to the best vinyl store in Cologne, waiting for Jeff to arrive with the choicest vinyl you ever fucking heard. And the interesting thing is, like, that's what's interesting about this new thing is, like, what I hear you saying is those new Cologne 12-inch folks are now the community who now go, yo, check this out, check this out, check this out. It's great, man. I want to be Jazzy Jeff when I grow up, please.
me too. I'm inclined to ask you at risk just real quick because it strikes me, though it's not a problem we all have, Jeff. How do you actually get through? Do you have a process to make sure that you are able to consume these edits that are submitted to you and get through these 137? What's your process for making sure you're looking at the new content, the new tracks?
Well, you know that you can't look through all of them. Once again, I'm gonna go back to, if it was 130,000 of them, I would never be able to go through all of them. But if it's 1,000, if I chose to listen or go through 200 a day, which is not hard. I pull everything into a playlist and I just start going through and I'll listen and a lot of them, the edits I don't have to go through as much as the new stuff. Like the edits are only edits of stuff that I already know. This is just a different version of what I can play. But the new stuff that I don't know anything about, you just give the time to give it a listen to see, oh man, let me see. There's a ton of times that I have played stuff, on a stream that I never listened to the record all the way through. Like because a lot of times I don't need to.
Right.
Like unless you do something really dramatic and go from a great record to a horrible record, I pretty much trust my ears on listening to the first 30 seconds.
Barry Gordy, you gotta hit him with. Barry Gordy said you gotta get him with the first 5 seconds of the record. It's trash. Don't hit me in the first 5 seconds. Motown.
But I mean, once again, that's going back to curating. That's going back to listening. That is kind of like, let me put this together. And I appreciate, you appreciate the people that trust your curation.
Right.
Like that's the beauty of it, because the good thing is not every time I play, I'm curating something. There are times that I'm a curator, and there's times like we just gonna fucking party, and you have to be able to differentiate, because sometimes people don't want to learn. I just want to dance. This is not the learning time. I just want to dance. And you just have to know, that's why a lot of times Wednesdays are more, okay, this is the lunch break. I got people at work. I'm not trying to get you in trouble and have you dancing in your seat. I want to play something that, and I'm also somebody that I don't like and I will go back to the gatekeeper thing. I am somebody that I don't subscribe to. I got this record that nobody else has, and I'm not going to give it to you because nobody made that shit specially for you. All of this music is to be shared. So I am very quick to let someone know, hey, you are listening to brand new Tank and the Bangers. You're listening to Giddy Gang. You're listening to I want to let people know what this music is. If you like it, hey, you go down the rabbit hole and download every album they had and every song to find out if this is something that you want to put, in your repertoire.
It's also, sorry, when you're talking about the first records, I'm trying to explain to you how tall these vinyl stacks were. They were the size of a house. And Jeff's not listening to every single one. He's like, ooh, grab a piece, boom, 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 boom. And same thing, I'm sure, as you get these tracks. But I will tell you, last week I went to this party. Shout out to the folks at Dante's who brought this. They brought their entire Dante's onto the ship, and they just had crates of vinyl. And I just found myself in the corner while Rich Medina's DJing. It was back to the old school, sitting on the floor, just reading liner notes, just feeling. Yeah. Seeing where it was mixed at, where did they mix this record at? Oh, the same producer they used here. Look at the shout out to the people in there, man. It's just that feeling of, I know I sound like the old school dude in the room right now, but man, let me be the old school dude in the room, because I feel like that's what?
That's a part of the senses.
Yeah, that's a part of the senses.
If you're just hearing it, you're missing something.
Yeah. They really are. Like it's the story, it's the narrative, and we don't have music videos even. And I'm not even sure how I felt about music videos when I was paying for those things. But I feel like we have to figure out how to use this experience. And I just go back to like what Rich Medina did for Africa, like, and what you just did last week, at the Kennedy Center with Eric B. It's really like Rakim. Yikes. Like it has to be presented in a way where you appreciate this in different contexts. Where to me, hip hop just has this longevity. I was just thinking about it today. I found some B-sides, Tribe Called Quest stuff. I was like, wow, like there's just so much resonance with our music. And what does the display of that look like digitally, physically, experiential? You look at what's happening with Vegas and U2 and the Sphere, and what Usher did with the Strip and how he brought Atlanta. So you felt like you smelled Atlanta and looked like Atlanta. Where are we headed? When these compositions now have these other palettes and places to kind of paint these pictures. We ain't even talking about VR yet, but which is coming. It's here basically with Apple Vision Pro. What does that experience feel like, look like, sound like, taste like, touch like, all those kinds of things? I'm excited for it.
Yeah, Brian.
I am excited for it too. Let's go. LFG.
Yeah.
I think we're
Priesta, sorry to cut you off because this will be part of it. How much I'm dying for this group here to dig into detail into that conversation. So I'm looking forward to it.
It's gonna be good. So guys, we're gonna be wrapping up here in just a second. And something we didn't really get to touch on too much today, but we're gonna dive deeply into next time, is really connecting with the concept and then the value of the intangible goods, aka NFTs, tokens, all the other synonyms that you want to use for that. Because I think there's a lot of mixed feelings about all of it, and there gets to be. And we have a lot of knowledgeable people here, not on this now on the screen, that can share some light and share the knowledge that would help create some clarity around all of it. And ultimately, with that clarity, it'll help empower all of us to move forward with greater knowledge, greater understanding, greater ways to apply these things, really, and integrate. And we get to adapt together, right? So that's the key here, is that we get to adapt to these things together, and we get to choose with intentionality what we want that to look like. What's the objective? What's the why behind it? What's the point? And reverse engineer it back through. And today, I'm going to say my final words before I let everyone else say their final words. But my take-home message or take-home learning today was thank God when Jeff was going in store to buy music, that there weren't 130,000 releases, because he would have no thumbs.
I wouldn't be here.
Secondly, is that if we can all apply a Shazam style way of life, which I would call or consider to be tangible touch points, because if Shazam is the most authentic you in the words of Lynette, but it's the most authentic you. It's your real expression of what you're interested to learn, to gain, to know. What is that, right? What other areas in life can we Shazam our life? And how would that improve? How might that improve everyone else? How might that impact everyone else? A very intangible world that we live in. So those are my final thoughts for today. I will let's go just around the screen. James, go for it.
First of all, thank you, Parisa. This was an excellent episode.
Yes.
You did a fantastic job. Thank you so much. And for those looking at her hashtag, Tumaj is a rapper in Iran who is sentenced to be executed for being an MC, for doing what those of us in our community have done for so long. And I just want to make sure that I point that out, because in the busyness of news cycle, you probably don't know who Tumaj is. So do your homework, hashtag free Tumaj. I just shout out to the tastemakers out there, to the curators who curate in everything from coffee to good wine, to cannabis, to whatever your thing is, right? Whatever you figured out how to be Dungeons and Dragons, super nerdy with your thing. Shout out to you out there that are you spend the time really diving into things, whether it's anime, whether it's whatever, man. I have so much respect for the curator. And I feel like as much as I am digital and a digital optimist and futurist and techno optimist, I'm also just a really big believer in that real life experiences real materiality is stuff they're talking about in the art world. Even in the art world, they're starting to bring in more materials you can actually feel. Shout out to all those who are using real goods, real hardwood, building things from scratch. I mean, that's not my thing, by the way. I want it to be my thing, but shout out to those curators who really are craftsmen. And one of my boys who passed away of COVID last year was just, he was on me. He was like, James, hip hop is going to take over coffee. Hip hop's going to take over, micro brew beer. And he was right. Shout out to my boy Bo. He was spot on. We're in the era of really craftsmen being like highly revered as celebrated curators. I'll throw it over to Brian. It feels like a perfect Brian segue.
Yeah, that is a perfect segue. You said a lot of what I would have said. I think what I'll add to it is let's just all remember that while we can't get stuck in the past, and technology, as we'll talk about more, has provided us some great opportunities for creators to get to market, etc. We creators, there are others that you need to get to market. There's others, curators need curators. And it's important to consider that. It's great to say, let's strip everything away and now I can just post on SoundCloud. But I think what we're finding is, to use a lazy analogy, it takes a village, right? It takes a community. It takes a mag mob, sort of to say. And I think we as technologists, and there's a lot of these here, and futurists and creators and curators, we need to make sure that we are constantly evaluating, we're respecting that technology can bring about advancements, but it also can come at a cost. And we need to be engaging to make sure that we are evaluating technology and applying it to ensure that we preserve what is the good of the experiences that we love.
Mm-hmm.
Lynette, you have the mic. That was beautiful, Brian.
Yeah, Brian, I don't know if I'm supposed to go after that. I will add that one of the things I was thinking about when we were talking about the Shazam thing more than anything was about being present and how that allows for that whole experience, the sensory, and for there to be an experience, a moment, like just using Shazam. You know what? Shazam should pay us if they want to. We'll talk about that later. Yeah, but using this, using that, I was thinking more to take it a step further, that one of the things that adds to the value of this discovery is the fact that it stopped you in your tracks and you were present in that moment and actually paying attention to what was happening to you in that moment. And I think that when we start to talk about how we exist in these digital spaces, that needs to be kind of our North Star of how are we going to take an NFT, dare I say, or a digital asset of any kind or a digital experience and allow people to find a way to be present in it and what that looks like. So that's kind of been my takeaway, that, in this whole conversation, it's all been about, A, you still need humans, and B, you still need to be present. And, I'm excited to see where that conversation goes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so proud of the NFT mention too, Lynette.
Yeah. You beat me to it.
He's like,
yay! But no, this is fun. Take it away, DJ Jazzy Jeff.
Yeah.
Well, piggybacking off of what Lynette said, I think what I am more excited about is I come from a pure music space and making music, and this was a journey to get back to the pureness that I am. This was a fight because not everybody has the ability to have their freedom, and I fought for that. And you tap into the sensory of people that enjoy what you do, that allows me to have that level of freedom. But I think what I'm more excited about is preserving preserving that, linking with Brian and linking with James and becoming a little bit more aware of the NFT space and the blockchain space, we started talking about these problems that we started trying to figure out solutions to. You know, how can we get back to, you know, the tangible asset? How can we get back to the feeling, you know, that you own something with the music? Like, you cannot negate the fact that when you would go to the store and you would spend $9.99 and buy that record, you held that record walking out of the store, and you came home, and just like Brian showed, you read the cover front to back. You knew the thank yous. You knew some of these people, wives and husbands, and, you know, and shout out to my manager, Jimbo. And like, you got immersed in not just the music, but the whole sensory part of purchasing this thing that had music on it. And going back to the senses, when you start pulling those things away, we don't have that. Like, I kept saying, I don't want to make it like I think we should have to pay for every piece of music out there, but I do think it is a considerable difference that anything that you want to hear, you have access to hear it instantly, and it makes you not hold on to it. It kind of devalues it a little bit. And it's a weird situation, because as much is, it's almost like someone told me, Jeff, you can have any record in the world. And I'm like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. Until you realize that somebody put out 130,000 records today. And you're like, oh shit, I don't have time to listen to all of this. And I'm not going to listen to all of this. I don't know if this is really good. I really enjoyed Joey Blanco putting his thumb up, asking me if I want 1 or 2 copies, and that curation. And I'm excited to get to the conversation when we can bridge these two things together, to almost let people understand that pretty much what the whole creators union is going to show you is how we can take it back to having that tangible asset in a digital world. I'm gonna drop the mic on that.
Joey
Yes.
Blanco, the
Done.
curator's curator.
Cut the line. We're done.
Joey just called. It's a wrap. It's over. Bye.
So good.
Oh man.
That's good.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm excited.
Yeah, I am too.
Next
This is
week.
great.
Happening next week. 7 days. Count on it. Set the
Yeah.
expectation level high.
Sounds good. Let's
And
go.
I might play some music next week. Matter of fact, I'm gonna play some.
Ooh.
Hey babe,
right.
should I get him a go out song?
If you got one, I'm never
gonna
going to turn down a song.
Ooh.
Life is always taking it doesn't seem to go nowhere. Time slips so slowly, but before you know it, and we still can't find it, and why didn't especially when we're close to the end. We'll just have to keep moving forward in it until the moment when it comes around again. I'll take my time. You just take your time. We can do what we do. Take